What if our lives are run by three funds alone? You probably use one of the largest banks in America, and their major shareholders are the big three. I reviewed 157 articles and 56 videos so that in just 5 minutes and 55 seconds, you could learn the truth about how they affect your life. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. These are three separate funds that compete with each other. So why did I put them together, you may ask? Tell me, who is the largest owner of BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street? That is, they own each other. First, I got interested in the founder of Vanguard, John Bogle. He wanted everyone to be able to invest. That's why he created a passive investment fund. He made it possible for every American to increase their income and ensure a decent retirement. The only thing Mr. Bogle was afraid of was that Vanguard would become too big and would no longer serve the national interest. The 2008 crisis boosted the demand for passive funds. At this point, BlackRock, led by founder Larry Fink, comes into play. The state hired BlackRock to analyze and deal with the mess. The company got all the key government contracts. This means that the banks that were supposed to save BlackRock were also owned by it. The same banks that made people lose their homes and end up on the streets. This made Mr. Fink the most influential person in the economy. That's when I got an insight. During the crisis, BlackRock, Vanguard, and several other funds took over the real estate market. They bought it for $60 billion. In doing so, they brought the system to its knees. And thus, you and me. Do you think it's impossible? They simply offered twice the price as soon as the owner published the ad. That's how they bought up a quarter of the houses on the market, collapsing the mortgage bonds used by ordinary people. So now you're renting a house because you can't afford to buy one. And this is only the 10th article in my research. However, the real estate market is not all that the big three control. The information I found out next shocked me. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are the largest owners of 88% of companies in the United States. They control us completely, and we don't even realize it. You think you're free to choose the news and candidates. There are so many TV channels. This is real freedom of speech. You cannot be manipulated. But 90% of the media is owned by BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. When you browse and look at who owns your favorite companies, you see the following. McDonald's, 18.45%. Apple, 15.64%. Microsoft, 16.75%. Even your favorite food, which you often buy, is an investment in the big three because it can be owned by these funds. It's your favorite Milka bar, which is owned by Mondelez. Along with it, you buy Pepsi, which is owned by PepsiCo. These companies, and many others, are owned by the big three. Do you realize the scale now? This situation reminds us of the financial capital system of J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller when the business was under their control. Perhaps 20% is not so much, but shareholders who own at least 5% of the shares are already very influential. Moreover, those who own more than 10% are considered insiders of the company, according to U.S. law. My question is, do they actually communicate with each other? Or is it just a coincidence? The big three coordinate their voting. In this way, they centralize the power of shareholders, allowing them to vote on important issues, such as who runs the corporation or what is an employee's compensation. Azar et al. Proved that joint ownership contributed to an increase in airline ticket prices by 3 to 11%. Joint ownership has disastrous consequences, and you can personally experience them. Your salary is reduced, and food prices are constantly rising. Vanguard CEO once said, "In the past, some have mistakenly assumed that our predominantly passive management style suggests a passive attitude with respect to corporate governance. Nothing could be further from the truth." A small investment company that owns 0.2% of Exxon shares requested that the company replace a third of its board of directors and reduce its emissions. Everyone laughed because it's such a small company. But it was supported by three giants who owned 19%. And you know what? Exxon replaced 25 board members. To control each company, BlackRock created Aladdin Artificial Intelligence. It manages people's assets all over the world, even in China, whose economy was autonomous until 2020. BlackRock became the first foreign company to invest in China. The company is invested in Hikvision, a blacklisted Chinese spyware company. It can recognize faces and provide personal information. This way, BlackRock can access information about every person in the world. This is impressive and terrifying at the same time. The greatest danger posed by these three represent is economic. The American economy is experiencing a monopoly. So, imagine you are the big three. You need to constantly grow and increase your investments. So will you stop? Especially if people are now investing more and more in passive funds. Back in the day, people benefited from such a financial revolution. But now, it all comes down to the fact that these funds make most of the decisions in the world. Their assets are estimated at $21 trillion. This is more than the GDP of every single country in the world. There hasn't been such consolidated power since the Golden Age. Do you know how that ended and what can happen now? Over time, their power will only increase, affecting big business. Passive investing may now be the cause of the next crisis.